intro and a white table.
Hook. This is the hook, right?
This is the hook.
Yeah.
Hook, Anna White. Ready?
Yep.
Anna White helped us build this table. I'm sure many of you have heard of Anna White and her awesome DIY plans. I'm Tyler, and we're so excited to show you how easy it was to build a floating table using plans right off of her website. But in true Leggari fashion, we're gonna take it a step further and coat the top using our world-class epoxy. Her plans are easy and simple to follow, and that's a philosophy we believe in, simplifying the industry. The first thing we want to do is pre-cut all of our wood. Second thing we got to do, build the frame. The next step is to attach your legs and all the trim pieces. The final step to your Anna White build is attaching the hollow core door to the top. So we got the table prepped. I'll kind of go over that before we pour the stuff out. I'm gonna go over mixing. We're gonna be using a 1.5 gallon kit with our white pigment. So this top is 20 square feet. When we do our stone kit process on here, we do 8 ounces per square foot. So we're gonna make a little extra. I think it calls for, what is it, 160? So it calls for 160. We're gonna just make a 1.5 gallon kit. Makes it simple, maybe we'll do it a little thicker. So I got all the stuff I need to mix here. 1.5 gallon kit of our metallic epoxy clear, our white pigment, and then I got the 2 5-gallon mixing buckets. You'll see what that's for. We like to do secondary mixing buckets just to ensure that all the product gets mixed thoroughly, no soft spots, stuff like that. I highly recommend following the 3P2 process. Got the drill, paddle wheel, our dirty pour buckets we're gonna batch up here. We're gonna be using French beige spray paint. We're trying to match the wood, right? We talked about maybe staining it black, but I like the color. It's natural looking, so we're gonna keep that. We're gonna try to match it with that. Cool thing about this is if you guys do this table and you wanna switch up the spray paint color, that's totally fine. Maybe you wanna add another color. Doesn't really matter, right? You just pick the spray paint color. Maybe you wanna use our Leggari effects, a lot of options, so you don't have to do this exact setup. Got my gloves, isopropyl, denatured alcohol, and I think that's it. I think that's all we got. This is for spraying the spray paint into the cup. And so I'll go over mixing and then I'll just show you. So what I'm gonna do first is pour the A in, 5-gallon bucket. And then I'm gonna pour the part B into the 5-gallon bucket. And then I'll add the pigment. Now you can add the pigment into the part A before you add the B if you want and mix it in. The only thing is if you're measuring out like certain amounts on measuring containers, you never want to add the liquid pigment before you add the hardener because that's going to screw up your ratios, right? So again, just if you're measuring out of a container, right, making a certain amount, don't add the pigment before you add the hardener. 3P2, what it stands for is I'm going to start at the top when the resin's in there, spin the drill from the middle, go to the bottom. Once I hit the bottom, I'll go around a couple times. I'll come back up slow. Once I hit the top, I'll go around a couple times, and that stands for 1. So we're gonna do that 3 times, up and down, and then we're gonna pour. So 3 up and down, P stands for pour, secondary mixing container. What that's gonna do is get all the part A off the sides that didn't get mixed in thoroughly, dumped into the second one, and then we're gonna go up and down 2 more times. So very simple process. That's pretty much it, very, very simple. Tim came up with that process, and ever since we've been using it and teaching it, never had soft spots, sticky spots, unmixed resin on any project. Okay, so once you have your 3P2 mixing process done, biggest thing is get the product out of the bucket, get it in the batches and dumped on whatever project you're doing as soon as you can. We never want to let it sit in here. It will start to heat up. Obviously, the more epoxy in a mass, the faster it will heat up. So what we're gonna do is Kyle's gonna start spraying. He's gonna give me some liquid spray paint. He's gonna put a rag over here. Make sure you shake these up really good. And then if you're spraying in like this, you're not gonna get the color, right? So you wanna kind of hold it down when you spray into there. And then we put the rag over the top just to keep the fumes and stuff, overspray from coming out. So what we're gonna do is, we did a little sample board. We always like to do sample boards just to check colors, right? Sometimes we've done projects where, man, you put a color down and it don't look good. When you're doing project, contractors, whenever you do a project, have a board there that you can coat at the same time, and you'll start to amass an array of sample boards of all different things that you can show to clients, because you know everyone's different, right? You might do some wild, crazy blue and green and yellow counter, and then down the road you might run into someone that's like, hey, have you ever done blue and green? Well, hey, you got this board, you can show them. So little tip, have a board ready on all your projects and make sample boards. We came up with this process, coating counters. A lot of companies have, you know, followed suit, which is cool, whatever, right? We post it online, so people are gonna copy it. We used to tape the edges, right? We still do on stuff. A lot of times when we coat the kitchen though, we coat it so many times the edges taper off, and so we do weather stripping, right? It doesn't blow out, doesn't build up, it doesn't let it build up as thick on the edge. And so we're doing weather stripping on this one. But again, we use painter's tape a lot. You'll see a lot of people doing that now. Reason is we did some dirty pours on some projects, and what happened was they looked beautiful when we did them, came back 20 minutes later, and it all ran off, right? So we're thinking, how could we do this on a counter? Because you know, most dirty pours, people are tilting, making stuff move around. And so what we did was we tried it on the counter in the back, tape the edges. We're like, hey, let's tape the edges, let it set up and pull it. Sure enough, worked like a champ. That's what started the stone kit line in our arsenal. And yeah, it's just a really cool process. You get these really natural looks. It's really simple. You don't even have to really touch the resin. But what we're gonna do different on this one is we're gonna go straight lines back and forth, right? You've seen us do a lot where you just do random patterns. It looks really cool, but we're gonna go more of like a wood grain look. Right? I'm gonna just be pouring out beads all the way down, back and forth. It's gonna look really cool. And so batching these out, very simple. you can add, if you add the color into the bottom before you pour, it will muddy out the color a little, which looks cool. So we might do that in maybe one or two, probably one of these, and then the rest, I'll just have Kyle add a little bit to the top, and that's what will give us some really good colors. Okay, so before we coat this, right, we got everything mixed. I'm gonna just talk about prep, what we did to get it to this point. So this hollow core door, they sanded it, they rounded all the corners. Never coat over a square edge, always round your corners. The resin will not want to flow over a square edge is nice. You'll most likely have spots where it's missed. So all the edges were sanded, and then we primed it white because we're doing white over it. And then we have the weather stripping around the edges to create that dam because we're doing our stone kit process, which incorporates a dirty pour technique where we just pour right out of a bucket. Make sure your stuff's level too, right? So we put a level on this. If you guys have to, tweak it a little bit to get it level, take the time to do that, because last thing you want to do is do a beautiful design, come back later and it's all ran to one corner. It's going to really screw it up. So everything's good. Make sure you press your weather stripping down, and we're going to start pouring this. So we have all the batches here. We have a bunch of white ones. I'll just tell Kyle when I need color. He's just going to add a little bit to the top. I'll shake it around a little, and again, we're going long, just long line patterns. It's gonna look like a wood grain. It should match really good with the raw wood that we have on the side. The first bucket we poured, we put the color into the bottom, added the epoxy. That kind of muddies out that color. And so you get these really natural look. It looks like it's inside the epoxy. It's really, really cool, really natural looking. And then if you add it to the top, it's still cool looking, but you'll have more of that color. And so like this one right here, we got a lot of color that came out, right? So it just depends on the look you're going for. But notice I'm jumping all over the table. I'm not just pouring one bucket out in the same spot every time. All right, so we got a beautiful top now, guys. One thing I will say is if you're not in love with this pattern, pour it out randomly. You can switch that up, right? It's all the same. We're dumping out of buckets. We don't have to touch it. If there's any spots that we don't like in the top, we can run a paint stick through it. We can run our hand through it. We can blend in colors more. We can get rid of some of these brown spots. Maybe there's too much brown here. We don't like it. I can blend that in to get rid of it. Again, biggest thing, you can't take the color out. And so always start with less like we did. You can always add more. Another thing is I can't emphasize it enough to, once you've mixed the product, get it dumped out of that bucket, right? These are starting to kind of warm up on us. They sat there for a while. We were talking a lot. We shot a behind the scenes live video, so I was engaging with those YouTube behind the scenes. And so just make sure you get the bucket out quick. If you do see a spot where you can see primer, just run your hand across it. That'll get rid of surface tension. That'll let the resin level out and fill it in. So look at different angles, make sure it's all filled. An easy way to check for pulling weather stripping, or maybe you've taped your edges, is to just take a paint stick, move the product away from the board. See how fast it levels out? It's almost like 3 seconds, 5 seconds, very fluid still. We want to move this, and then it takes like 10, 15 seconds. It's like very thick. It slowly fills itself in, and that's the perfect time to pull your edges. There's no, set time, because it depends on the temperature of the resin when you mixed it, how long you took to mix it, how long it sat in the buckets, the room temperature. There's a lot of variables that go into that, and so that's the best way to check. And so what we like to do is we'll get done, get everything fine-tuned, right? And then we'll come back and periodically check it every 15, 20 minutes. Same corner, right? Okay, it's starting to slowly move in, it's thicker, then we pull the tape. So last thing we're gonna do, you can disperse the surface. You get a lot of cells and craters. We wanna not do that on this one. We're gonna just mist it with denatured alcohol. We don't wanna break up these veins, these patterns with the dispersing effect. So if you do disperse it, 91% or higher isopropyl alcohol. And then one thing I do wanna point out is when you're spraying denatured alcohol, you wanna mist the surface, and then you don't wanna spray too much at once, because the last thing we wanna do is muddy out these veins. If you spray too much denatured alcohol on the surface or any chemical, it'll get liquidy on the surface, and your veins will start to like drag out and muddy them out, and it doesn't look good. So we wanna keep this exact pattern, this exact look. And so I'm gonna mist it lightly. This will eliminate any air that's been trapped in it, any micro bubbles, anything like that. That's pretty much it. We'll let this set up. When it comes time to pull the tape, I'll use a paint stick and show you what we're looking for, and then we'll get the tape pulled, get our edges coated. This thing's gonna look beautiful. So it's about time to pull the tape. Like I said before, I was gonna show you what we're looking for. So if I remove some resin in a spot, see how it's just really sticky and stringy, right? Takes a minute to level out. Not a minute, but you guys get it, right? Longer than 10 seconds, right? One thing I do want to point out is, you know, you're almost better pulling it a little earlier than later, right? If you do pull it late and it's really thick, doesn't want to move, you can get a blow dryer, a heat gun, thin that resin, it'll start to move better. But again, just pull it, you know, don't like go to lunch for a half an hour, 45 minutes, come back, and then check it, right? It's good to stick around, periodically check it, and then pull it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull the weather stripping. When we pull it, we're gonna pull it down at an angle that's gonna drag the resin to the edge. And so this is what I mean by that.